while at the same time acknowledging that the Democratic Party and Joe Biden could do more. But to just completely lay down and pretend everything's fine, I mean, that sets you up for a disaster. You should not be going confident into any election because that leads to complacency. 2016 should have been, the big lesson there. But I want to get to, so I will get to James Carville's response to this. But first, I want to get to what James Carville said, which I imagine happened around when this interview was done, around mid-December. So here's James Carville, and he, again, big Democratic strategist, largely in the 90s. He worked closely with Bill Clinton back then. He's sort of become less relevant now. He is very, as far as I've seen in many interviews, hates Bernie Sanders, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders sort of has the answer to the problem here, but that's an aside for now. I want to show you what James Carville said in this interview.
You said back in September that anyone who doesn't think that Donald Trump could beat Joe Biden needs to wake the F up. Is that still your assessment?
Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but, a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. I think I found an acorn in September, and unfortunately, I still have the acorn.
When you say it's really bad out there, I mean, what are people telling you?
Well, you hear, unfortunately, you hear a lot of different things, but I nothing that I've heard, and I've talked to a lot of people, I've thought about this a lot, I've looked at a lot of polling, and it's just people are losing connection with their government. They just think it doesn't relate to their lives. Young people certainly feel the same way. These youth numbers are horrible. And you have to remember, we don't just need to carry under 30. We don't need to just carry black votes. We have to have a robust turnout in both of these demographics. And I don't see any evidence right now that that's happening.
It sounds to me like you think if the election were held today, Biden would lose.
Well, me and everybody else.
All right, so I'm going to get to some information that backs up what James Carville is saying here, but I'm also going to get to something that backs up John Fetterman. First, I just want to note that he doesn't respond to the question about what he hears people saying. So James Carville apparently has been doing some work, at least in Louisiana, in terms of talking to young people, talking to black voters and young black voters about why they don't want to vote for Joe Biden. He's obviously heard responses. There's a reason why he's not vocalizing what he has heard. And it's because the things he is hearing absolutely backs up what the left has been saying about Joe Biden. Whether it's around issues of human rights, like Biden's alliance with the far right-wing Israeli government as they are committing human rights abuses, whether it's about, the cost of healthcare, whether it's about, low wages, the importance of unions, all of these various left-wing issues that someone like a Bernie Sanders, who James Carville hates, has been fighting for forever. He's not bringing any of this up for obvious reasons, because it goes against everything he has been fighting for since the 90s. So I just find that very interesting because overall, James Carville, I think, is correct. He is correct to be worried. He is correct to understand that Biden is not popular right now, and to a degree that is concerning for the election next year. But he's not willing to say what they could do to address it, because what they could do to address it goes against his own worldview. At least that's how I'm reading this. Now, I want to show you James Carville's response to Fetterman. So Politico reached out to him after Fetterman made that comment. Asked if he'd like to respond, Carville said other Democratic senators, quote, apparently haven't gotten the memo yet that he's not relevant. His colleague, Senator Casey, asked me to host a fundraiser with him last week. Senator Brown asked me to go to Cleveland to campaign with him. On Fetterman, he added, I'm glad he's feeling better. So Carville, to his credit, he's not willing to get in the dirt with Fetterman. And there's really, Fetterman randomly, look, I'm fully on board with criticizing James Carville, and I have in the past. But it's a random attack, at least in the context of this interview when Carville was not brought up by name. Fetterman just brought him up. So, I guess it shows the maturity in some ways of James Carville to not get involved here. But I do want to show First, the Fetterman defense. So here is Jessica. What's her last name? It's not even showing, but she's on Tarlev. I'll get it after the video. But this is like the one Democrat on Fox's The Five who's on there occasionally, and here she is making the case for Joe Biden.
Where do we go from here? 20 seconds to defend Joe Biden, the indefensible.
We go right back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue because we do have good academic news. But the media doesn't want to cover it. He is correct about that. He shouldn't just say, you're looking at the wrong thing. They need to communicate this better. But we got revised third quarter GDP growth up to 4.9%. Unheard of. Consumer confidence went up 14%, largest jump in a decade. Inflation is running at an annualized rate below Powell's target, which is why he's talking about a rate cut. Personal income's up. Grocery and energy prices down last month. In the Quinnipiac poll, this part of it is really important. They did a forward-looking question. What do you think 2024 is going to be like? 48% say the economy is going to be better, and 62% think that they are going to be better off in the next year. When is the election? November 2024. Democrats, make your case. There is a case to be made.
All right. So that is the case that Democrats, I guess, will be trying to make, is that the economy, at least on paper, things are getting better. It doesn't mean that people are directly feeling it in their everyday lives. But considering that Quinnipiac poll she brings up, people appear more hopeful. That could mean good things for Joe Biden. But we're not really seeing a lot of that reflected now, at least in a lot of the numbers that we're seeing from polling, that we're seeing from approval rating. I'm going to show you Biden's approval rating here. How popular is Joe Biden? So this is from 538. 55.2% disapprove. 39.1 approve. That is a spread of 16.1. Compare that to Donald Trump, where it's a spread of 10.6 with 52.8% disapproving. Now, of course, it's important to note here that because Joe Biden is president, he's more, top of mind for people and are more, meaning people are more willing to be critical of him because he's currently in power. Whereas Donald Trump is, a distant memory for some. So he's not really as going to elicit the same kind of negative reaction as the current leader does. But so I do expect this to change and become worse for Trump as things get closer to the general. But still, you're going to have a very hard time, just historically, winning an election, a presidential election, with a 39.1% approval rating. Now, yes, we're a year out. Things can change. Things will change. How much will they change is, I think, the bigger question here. And I do want to get to, at the end of this video, another clip from that James Carville interview, because it's a different topic, but I think it's one that is worthy of having within this discussion. But this as well, presidential election polling. So this is from Real Clear Politics, showing Trump having the advantage at 46.8% to 44.5% for Biden. And this does go over, key battleground states. So it's not just, national polling, which means nothing really. What matters is state by state. So Wisconsin, you have Trump winning that. Actually, no, sorry, it's tied now. 45.8 to 45.8. Very close in Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, Trump is winning 45.4 to 44.4. See some more states here. Nevada, Trump is winning with 47.8%. Georgia, Trump is winning with 48.2%. Arizona, Trump is winning with 46.8%. Michigan, Trump is winning with 45.8%. Not looking good in the key battleground states for the general election for Joe Biden. But before I get to the last clip from Carville here, just to put a pin on this Fetterman Carville discussion, I tend to side more with James Carville on this. Now, I just on the criticism or the fact that Democrats should be doing more right now to try and appeal to people to get support out. The issue isn't about losing people to Donald Trump. The issue is about turnout, as he points out in that clip. That's the real issue. Young voter turnout, especially. If you don't get young people out the same way that, or I should say, if Biden doesn't get young people out the same way he got them out in 2020, he's not going to win the election. So that should be the key focus right now, is how to get young people and typical non-voters who would side with Democrats out to vote for a general election. And the fear of Trump, I think, was really successful